This is Sherry Roth with Stamped Treasures. I'm a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator from Alberta, Canada, and I am excited to be here today to share with you one of my absolute favorite products from the 2025-2026 Stampin' Up! Catalog, and that is the Extraordinary Flora Washi Tape and Bundle. I was so excited when I saw this come out in the catalog. Now, actually, before we get started, let me share where you can find it. So it's in this catalog, this 2025-26 catalog, and you can find it on pages 84 and 85. So there is this fabulous washi tape. Look how wide that is. It is about 3¼ 3 inches, 3¼ inches wide. And then there's patterns there that kind of repeat. So there's purple flowers and then there's pink flowers. So, and that pattern repeats. So it's purple, pink, purple, pink, purple, pink. So it just repeats. And what's so fabulous about it is that there is a die that will cut out these images. So I will share how that works with you in this video. And then there's also a stamp set. So the stamp set you can use as a standalone. You can use it with the die. You can even stamp on top of the washi tape. So many things that you can do. All right. So I'm just going to make sure that I've got my screen up. If you're joining in this morning or watching on the replay, I'd love to hear where you're watching from. A comment in the comment section. It's always fun to see where everybody's watching from. Okay, so we're going to use this today. I am going to throw in a couple extra products. So I love this stamp set. The greetings I find there's congratulations with love and for the extraordinary couple. So it's great for congratulation cards, wedding cards, anniversary cards, that type of thing. But if you want to do other occasions, you'll need another greeting set. So I'm throwing in the Simply Said greeting set, which is one of my favorites. This is also, I believe this is still in the annual catalog. It was released last year. But I love it because these are greetings that I use over and over and over again. So I'm throwing that in, and then I'm throwing in a few other supplies but I'll share those as we go along. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. So let's talk about this washi tape. So this washi tape, what I normally do with it is I will take a 3½ inch by 11 inch piece of cardstock, and I will roll one of each of the patterns on, and then I go from there. So there's several different ways that you can use it from here, and I'll share a couple of those ways or a few of those ways. But you don't just have to add it to white cardstock. You can add it to lots of different colors and it changes the look. So here it is added onto some crumb cake cardstock, and that gives almost like a little bit of a vintagey feel, which is kind of fun. Here it is on some basic beige cardstock and then some vanilla cardstock. And then you could take the pink and the purple and add it to colored cardstock. I mean, you could add it to anything, but I added it to pretty in pink cardstock for the pink flowers and fresh freesia cardstock for um, the purple flowers. And it just kind of gives it a very different look. So depending on the look that you want to achieve, play around with adding it to different colors. You can also, I'm sorry, excuse me. You can also add it to vellum. So I wanted to share, I've got a piece of vellum here. Now, vellum is not something that we carry anymore. However, if you've been a paper crafter for a while, you likely have some vellum in your stash. So I wanted to share how I apply it to these pieces of cardstock. So I will take my washi tape and I will cut it. I feel like I have more control if I separate it from the roll. So I'm just separating it in between the pink and purple florals, trying not to cut off any of my images. And then I'll take this and I'll just make sure I can fit it all. And I usually try to position it down in the center first and then work my way out. Okay. By doing that, you can kind of eliminate any bubbles, any wrinkles. So you can see here, I've got some wrinkles there, but all you need to do is just use your finger and work those wrinkles out. And there's a few here. So it is really forgiving, really, really easy to use. And then when you die cut them on vellum, then they look so pretty. It's my favorite way to use them. So pretty. So that's it die cut on vellum. Okay. So those are a few different ways that you can use them. Um, Now, when you die cut it, you will end up with a ton of extra pieces. So I have just this little plastic dish that I keep all my extra pieces in. And I'll show you a couple different well, one way today to share how you can use some of these pieces that you have left over. Okay. All right. So the first card that we are going to make is this one here. So this uses the washi tape kind of as a larger piece. So we're going to die cut a larger label shape. And I'm going to use my favorite chunky oval from the Impressions of Bloom bundle. So I'm going to use this one here. Now, if you don't have this bundle, you can use any larger shape. It can be a circle, um, it can be a rectangle. You can even cut it. It doesn't, if you don't have larger die shapes, just cut a rectangle. That's fine. You could cut like maybe a 3x4 rectangle out of that, and that will work just as well. All right, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to die cut this from our washi tape. Let me set this aside, bring in my die cutting machine. I'm just going to position that so that I get as much of the image as I can. So I'm going to slide it down a little bit because if I slide it down to the bottom, I can usually save these top two flowers. And this washi tape has so much on a roll. It will last a long time. All right, set that aside and pull this back. And now we've got this beautiful shape with a fun pattern. So it's almost like it's pre-printed pattern paper cut down to the size, die cut to the size that you wanted. Okay, where's my kit? Oh, here it is. All right. Oh, and I guess I was meant to cut this one, but that's okay. We'll save that for a different project. Okay, and then I've got a piece of Petunia Pop cardstock that I have run through using the mini corrugated embossing folder to give that corrugated feel to it. I love this embossing folder. And I will have a link to today's blog post shortly after this video goes live. Will post um I'll post today's blog post, which will have, oh, I tore it. That's okay. We'll make that work. Um, which will have all the measurements for today's card. So don't worry about, I probably won't give too many measurements in this video, but just know that you'll be able to have those by visiting the blog post. Okay, so here, when you do emboss cardstock, that kind of weakens the fibers in the cardstock. So when you distress around the edges like I just did, sometimes you'll end up with areas that tear. So I'm going to reinforce that and pretend that that was done on purpose, and we're going to use it. We're going to reinforce that. We'll just make it more noticeable to make it look like it was supposed to be like that. And then we are going to take this and add it to our card front. And I am just using Stampin' Up's multi-purpose glue. And because this has so much texture to it, I'm adding a lot. Our multi-purpose glue is a really good glue. You normally don't need a lot. If you put too much on your cardstock, sometimes it will cause it to wrinkle and it doesn't look the best. But when you've got something with a lot of texture and dimension to it, then you do want to add a little bit extra. All right. Welcome, Sharon and Julie and Debbie. Thanks so much for joining me this morning. Oh, I know, Debbie. I've been saying to my team, and actually, when I did my washi tape class, I said, I would love to see a Christmas version of this washi tape come out. Wouldn't that be absolutely fabulous? Hopefully, in the holiday catalog. That would be so wonderful. All right. Now we're going to just fold our card base in half. I'm going to use my bone folder, make it nice and crisp. It would make it even better if this die would die cut the Christmas washi tape as well, just because that stretches the use. So great. Okay, so this is gonna go on. For this, we're gonna use some dimensionals. I'm just going to use some of the edges of my dimensional since I've got a larger shape. So I just wanted to remind you guys that today is the 25th of July, 2025. I always say that because who knows when you'll be watching this video, is the last day of free shipping. So Stampin' Up! Is offering free shipping here in Canada on orders over $100. In the US, I think it's 75. Don't quote me on that, but I think it's 75 before taxes and any Stampin' Rewards. So it's a fabulous time to kind of pick up some of those things that you've wanted on your wish list or stock up on some of the things that you use often. So adhesives, envelopes, cardstock, that type of thing. And if you've been waiting for this, because this has been hugely popular, I checked yesterday and the ETA on it, it's been on back order. It's been on back order at least twice that I've noticed since it came into stock. Um, it was on back order until the week of August 4th, but I had a quick look this morning and it's in stock right now. How long that will last, I don't know. But if you don't have it yet and it's on your wish list, free shipping is the perfect time to pick it up. All right. So we've got that on our card base. Now we're going to take just a little scrap of white and we're going to stamp on it. And we are going to turn this into a thank you card. So I've got my thank you greeting from the Simply Said stamp set. I'm just going to use some Memento ink and stamp that right on here. Cover that up, move it over, and we'll bring in our paper trimmer so that we can trim it down so it's a little bit narrower. Okay, and then we're going to angle cut this and trim this just a little bit. Okay, and then I've got some petunia pop ribbon that I have wrapped some twine around and tied a bow. And this petunia pop ribbon, this is actually on the last chance list. It's on low inventory. Once it sells out, it will no longer be available. So if you love that color and use a lot of ribbon, I highly recommend this ribbon. I really like it. I'll be using another color as well. So, and both colors are on the last chance list. This one is not on sale. It's still regular price, but the other color that I'm using, I think the other one is Summer Splash. That one is on sale. So I've just added two mini glue dots on here to hold my ribbon in place. And I'm just using some mini glue dots that were left over from a kit or something. I've had them sitting around for a while. I'm just trying to use up all those random bits and pieces that I have laying around. And then we're going to add a couple mini dimensionals on here. And then actually, let's make our bow just a little bit bigger. We want to be able to see it from under our greeting. We're going to add this on top of here like this. So some of the things that I was mindful of is I was mindful that my my dimensionals were placed on this side and then kind of in the middle here. So on the other side of the knot, but not on the end. If you want to put it on the end, you'll need to have a double layer of dimensionals because remember we popped this up and this is hanging over the edge. So you'll need a double layer. All right. And there is our card. Now, what you can do is you can die cut this piece, and you can add them on the inside. So when you die cut that, so you have that left over, you can add that to the inside. I'm not going to die cut this because we're going to end up die cutting a separate piece so I can show you how that works. All right. So there is card number one. Simple, beautiful, easy that you could easily mass produce these. And like I said, if they come out with a Christmas version, this would make a fabulous Christmas card design. Don't you think? All right. Okay. So that is card number one. Let me set that aside. And then card number two is this one here. So I wanted to incorporate the stamp set for this one. And I've used an embossing folder. Let me just grab it real quick so I can show you which one it is. It is the Pressed Flowers embossing folder. I believe this is an online exclusive. Um, and I love it because it embosses kind of just a part of it, and then you have some white space. I really like the look of those kinds of embossing folders. So I've used that one. And then I've used a little strip of, I don't remember where this, it's strawberry slush DSP. Any DSP will work. I've done this card both in the pink and the purple. So here we're going to stamp in pretty in pink. Here I stamped in fresh freesia. And then I just grabbed some kind of petunia pop um, DSP. So you just want to, it's just a little scrap of some DSP that coordinates. All right. And I did use the party banners to die cut my banners. And let me pull those out so that I can show you. Oh, you know what? I think I have them. I have them packed away. I'm heading away out of town for a crop or a retreat with some friends. Um, but two of the smaller size banners. So this one measures, actually, I can tell you. This one measures 2.5 by 2. So 2 inches wide by 2.5 inches. So if you don't have the party banner dies, you can just cut a flag. And then this one, you just want something a little bit smaller. So this one is about 1.25 inches by 1.75 inches. And this was cut with strawberry slush cardstock. All right. So before we pull out these pieces, I do have some pieces die cut, but I want to show you how the die works. So let's just cover my glue and we'll grab our die. Set this aside and we're going to pull in this piece. So you can see that it lines up perfectly to cut out all of those images with one pass through the machine. So I'm going to bring in my die cutting machine and we'll go ahead and do this. Okay. And I do strongly recommend that you use at least one piece of washi tape or post-it notes to hold it in place or post-it tape, just something to hold it in place because you don't want to waste that washi tape that you've rolled on there. Okay, so I've got one piece of washi tape. I think that looks like it's lined up pretty well. I'll add another one there. I'll just push this one down and then put that top layer on and just run that through. Okay, and now we've got all these fabulous die cut pieces that we can use on our projects. Look how fabulous that is. So simple. We didn't have to stamp those. We didn't have to color them in. And just with one pass through the die cut machine, we've got all of these fabulous little images. Now, if you wanted to add like maybe even more detail to these images, when you have your piece like this, you could take your stamp and maybe use some memento ink or maybe actually probably stays on ink. I actually haven't tried this, but I've seen it done. Probably stays on ink and stamp over top of this and then die cut it. And that will give you an outline image to your washi tape. All right, so let's peel this back and we're going to save that because I will cut these two out later. Okay, so now we've got a bunch of images here. I'll share what you can do with those later. And we are going to do one more thing here before we're going to do our stamping before we bring in all these pieces. Okay, so this stamp set, like I said, it has a few different greetings and then it's got this great big stamp. Now, I do have a friend who actually cut hers apart. I think she cut, I'm actually not sure. I think she cut a couple of the flowers apart and she uses it that way and then just pieces it back together when she wants to use it as an entire stamp. I am not into cutting my stamps. That just scares me. So I have never done that. Okay, but it is a larger stamp. So we do have a big block that you can use, but I have very small hands. So I find that big block really hard to use. So what I like to do is I like to use my glass mat and I will just stick it so that it's stamp side up. So flat side is at the bottom. And then I'm going to take my pretty in pink ink. So if you're doing the pink flowers, it'd be pretty in pink. If you're doing the purple flowers, it would be fresh freesia. And you just want to ink up a portion of this. You don't need to ink the whole thing. And then I'm going to take my banner and just put it upside down. Actually, I think I need to ink it a little higher. Take my banner piece and I'm going to place it upside down and just apply light pressure. You just want to make sure that you get that impression on your entire piece of cardstock. You don't want to push too hard. And then I'll lift it up and there is my stamped image. So I find bigger stamps, background stamps, anything like that, this is the way to use it for me. That's what works best. Okay, so now we need to clean this so that we can get it out of the way. I do have a stamp cleaner here somewhere. All right, I'm just going to use this and give it a quick wipe. And I'm going to stick it on top of this and I will clean it better afterwards. All right, so we still need to stamp our greeting on here. So I have Let's Celebrate from the Simply Said stamp set, but I just want to use the word celebrate. That's one of the things that's great about photopolymer stamps is that you can see right through the stamp so that you can ink up just a portion of it. Actually, let's move it over here so that I have just the word celebrate. And then we'll bring on our paper trimmer and trim this so that it's a little bit narrower and shorter. Now I do want a little bit more white space to the left of my greeting for this one. And we'll rotate it, trim it so it's narrower. Okay, now I think we've got all of our pieces. We can bring these back and we're going to distress around the edges. Now I know this isn't for everyone. Not everyone likes um the distressing around the edges, so you can skip this part. I love the texture that it adds and it doesn't require any extra tools. It's quick, it's easy, and I feel like it adds so much to your projects. So I'm going to be careful as I go around the embossed area. And then I'm also going to curl up this corner a little bit. Okay. And then let's fold our card base. So this is just a piece of thick, basic white cardstock. And then this was embossed just using regular white cardstock. We use some multi-purpose glue to adhere it. Multi-purpose glue for card making is my go-to. Love it. For scrapbooking, I always use seal. So I don't like to use a lot of liquid glue when I'm scrapbooking. I prefer to use a roll-on adhesive, but for card making, this is fabulous. All right, so we've got that adhered to that, and then we're going to work on our focal point. So I'm going to take my stamped image and my little strip of, okay, so this is from the celebratory sips, something along those lines. You can see because those are the drinks that are on that one pattern paper. I don't know if that's the name of the DSP, but or the suite or the bundle. That is another online exclusive product. Okay, so that's just a tiny bit too long, so we'll trim that. So, and I did that because there is a lot of white on this card, so I wanted to add a little bit of a pop of color up there. And then I'm going to take my bone folder, kind of curl up the ends of both of these little banners, and add some glue to this one. And then this is going to get added kind of in the center, again, just for that added little bit of color. Okay, I think that looks good. And curling those up just gives it a little bit more dimension. And I'll use some glue dots on here. We've got somebody watching from the UK. Welcome, Kay. Thanks for joining in this morning. This is such a fabulous bundle, isn't it? Love it so much. All right. Oh, I got some glue right there. I got to watch out for that. Okay, so then this piece is going to go on here like that. And then we've got some flowers here, but we're going to take some twine and just tie a bow. If you are new to watching me or following me, I love twine. Twine, linen thread, um, separating my ribbon to create little fibers. It's just something that I do. Very rarely do I create a project that does not have twine or some sort of fiber on it. I don't use a ton of ribbon as it's intended. Like I do some things like this. Um, and sometimes across a card, but I don't often tie bows with ribbon, at least not on my cards, just because I feel like it adds so much bulk and then it costs extra. Postage in here in Canada is crazy. It's very expensive to send a card. So I try not to have to I try to create cards where I don't have to add extra postage. Okay, so now we're going to actually, we got to add our greeting first. So I'm just going to trim this so it's just a little bit shorter. I'm going to leave that longer. And we're going to put a mini dimensional on this end and then some flat adhesive here because this is going to sit on top of this part, which is already raised, but this end is hanging off. And that way it sits flat. Now, another thing, and these are little things that I just notice when I craft. It's not a requirement, but I feel it looks a little bit better. So this end does not line up with this end. So it extends past. It's not lined up with the edge, but we've got that staggered look, right? So we've got the edge of the card, the edge of the greeting, and the edge of the embossed layer. I feel like that looks really good rather than lining this right up with the edge of the embossed piece. Okay, and then we'll add a little dot of multi-purpose glue right here. And we're going to add our bow on there. And then this guy's going to go on and we'll use, okay, now for this, I'm going to look at how I'm going to have it sit. I'm going to have it sit here. So I'm going to use a double layer of dimensionals after just saying that I don't like to include too many dimensionals, but a double layer here just to make it work better. If you're worried about extra postage, I often give my cards, hand them out to people when I see them. So I can use these ones with extra postage rather than mailing them. But this could be added closer to the end so that it doesn't add extra bulk. Oh, I don't want to cover my greeting there. And my bow looks like it needs to be just a little bit bigger so that we can see it. The other thing that you could do is you could add your bow. So put this on flat and add your bow right here so that it's not underneath your flower. That's another way that you can eliminate that extra depth. Okay, all right. So that's that. Then we've got some strawberry slush. Actually, I think these ones are pretty in pink. These are the lighter. So it comes with a package. In the package, you get strawberry slush, you get pretty in pink, and then you get some clear ones. And I think these are the pretty and pink ones. So there's the outside of our card. And then we've got this extra floral piece that we can add on the inside of our card. We'll do that. And there is card number 2. So this one I showed you how to die cut the washi, how to use the stamp. And we just created this fun little card. All right. Okay. So card number three is one where we're going to use lots of these little leftover pieces because, like I said, I shared that I have this little dish of tons of extra pieces. So it's fun to kind of come up with project ideas where you can use those extra pieces. So I'm going to share, actually, just going to grab something. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm going to share that with you in a minute. Okay, so this is the card here. So you can see that we've created a little background using some of those extra little pieces. Isn't that pretty? I love it. This is my favorite card from today. Okay, so what we're going to do is slide that aside here. And again, just a reminder, I will link to the blog post so that you can um, see, you can find out all the measurements there if you want to recreate any of these cards or versions of these cards. And this idea will work with die cut pieces, or if you're a Paper Pumpkin subscriber and you have lots of leftover die cut pieces, um, or if you've stamped a bunch of things or fussy cut a bunch of things and have leftover pieces, this same idea will work with those pieces. Okay, so we've got a piece of white where I have taken the stylish shapes, one of the stylish shape circles, and die cut a circle out of here. And we are going to mat it onto, or position it. No, we're not going to mat it just yet. Let's slide these aside. So I'm going to position it here so I have about a 16th of an inch border all the way around. And then I'm going to take a pencil and I'm going to lightly trace that circle. All right, and we're going to use that as our guide. And now I'm going to bring in all of my die cut pieces. Now, what I normally like to do is I normally like to pick um, one kind of focal point image, and that's usually something with color. Now, when I did this sample, I didn't have any large flowers left, and I didn't want to die cut more pieces. But this was the first sample that I made, so I have a larger focal point in there. So we're going to take, I mean, it can be any one of these. Let's use this one. And we're going to use dimensionals because I feel like this looks so good when all of these are popped up. So you will use a ton of dimensionals on this particular project. So we're going to add this one first, and I'm going to position it. We'll do it right about there. And then I'm just going to just pick several different images and fill in this space. So I'm going to take out these larger pink flowers. Okay, we're going to add some dimensionals to a few of these. We might add this one in too. And we'll definitely use some of the smaller ones are handy to use. And we'll do this one. Okay, let's start with that. The sticky spot is like right in the middle of my mat. I keep putting my project on it. And it's okay to have it hanging off the edge. Actually, maybe we'll do it on this side. So you want to go outside the circle. You don't want to confine all of your images to the inside of your circle because you want to try to avoid too many gaps. Let's do that one there. Feel like we need a smaller one in there. Let's try this one. So it's almost like a little bit of a puzzle. There we go. And then we can pop this one in here. And then we can do this one. Let's do this one going this way. Okay, let's see here. That one's a bit too big. That one's a bit too big. I think that one's good. This one might need some smaller pieces, so I'm just going to trim this. Add this in here. like that. Okay, so we need something there. That's just a little bit too big. Or we could do a pink flower. Let's do a pink flower. Like I said, you get so many little pieces here. Okay, I do want to bring in maybe another one of these. So I'm going to see if I have one of these in here. My little jar. Oh, I've got another yellow. I have to dump this out. Let's see here. We're looking for small little leaves. Here we go. There's two of them. Let's pull these. Let's push these to the side for now. So I think we'll have that. It doesn't matter how far off the edge you extend outside of that circle, it's going to get covered over. We'll do that. And then maybe, do we do want to do another one of those? Or maybe a smaller pink flower? I just feel like we need one more little thing right there. Okay, and the other thing that you can do is you can bring in your circle and just see how it's going to look. Yeah, I think that'll be good. Okay, we're going to add one more little pink flower. Pop that on there. Okay, so that doesn't look very nice. It's kind of sloppy, but by the time we put this on, it's going to look fabulous. So you want to use the same dimensionals, so the same kind of dimensionals that you used for your flowers, because you want this to be level. So you don't want to switch it out and use like our adhesive strips because those are a little heavier or higher. They're a little bit thicker. You can use our regular Stampin' Dimensionals if you started off with mini because our regular ones are the same height as our. But the other thing is you don't want to mix it with paper pumpkin dimensionals because paper pumpkin dimensionals are a little bit different in height as well. So our mini Stampin' Dimensionals and our regular dimensionals from the Stampin' Up! Catalog are the same height. So you can mix those two. Oh, let's turn this around. And then this piece is going to go right on here so that we've got that nice even border. And now that is all just flush. And look how that cleans it up. Isn't that pretty? Oh, I love it so much. Okay, now that is going to get added to our card base, which is a piece of Summer Splash cardstock. And that is just going to go in the center here. Okay, and then we're going to take, okay, let's actually do our inside piece first. Okay, so then I had some scraps of these two colors. So I've got my layer of white. When I use a colored card base, I always like to add a layer of white cardstock inside or whatever neutral I'm working with, basic beige or um, very vanilla. So I'm just going to add a little bit of adhesive to the bottom of this and then add that to my soft seafoam cardstock like that. Make sure that that's pretty even, and then we'll add adhesive to this. And this is going to go up at the top, or we could do it at the bottom. No, we're going to do it at the top. This is a great way to use up your leftover little pieces, your scraps. Got a piece hanging off here, so we're just going to trim this down. And then we're going to go back to some of our little pieces, and I think that would look really nice right there. Let's add that. So I used this washi tape and did a class in June and everybody got a roll of washi tape. And one of the ladies actually created something really pretty on the inside. She had lots of leftover pieces from one of the projects. And what she did was she created a little wreath around the center. She had stamped her greeting in the middle of the card, and then she used her leftover pieces to kind of create a little wreath around the greeting, and it looked so fabulous. So that's another way to use up some of those leftover pieces. Isn't that pretty? That little pop of color inside the card. Okay, so this circle is left over. That can be used for a different project. And here, again, just like I did on the Petunia Pop card, I have taken some twine and wrapped it around, tied a bow. And this Summer Splash ribbon, this is the one, this is also on the last chance list, and it's low inventory and it's on sale. So if you love this color as much as I do, you may want to pick up some of that while you can still get it. We'll use a couple mini glue dots. You know what? I'm going to trim this down just a little bit. It feels like it's just a little bit long. I'm just using my ribbon scissors and just trimming a little bit off the bottom. And then we'll grab a couple mini glue dots and we'll go right about here. Position that on there like that. And then let's slide these out of the way. Okay, and then we're going to do our greeting. So I've got a strip of white cardstock, just a scrap piece, and we're going to do the whole let's celebrate this time. So on the second card, I just inked up the word celebrate. For this one, we're going to do the whole greeting. And I'll cover this over. Bring in our paper trimmer, trim this down. So I believe I have linked in the description to where you can find that washi tape class that I did. We created, I think it was 4 cards that we made, completely different cards than the cards that I'm sharing today. So the tutorial is still available if you guys would are interested. And I do have a couple extra samples to share with you as well. So be sure to stick around here for a little bit longer. Okay, so then we're going to add dimensionals to this. Actually, you know what? We're not going to add dimensionals to this. We are going to use mini glue dots. We're going to add one here and one here. Peel off the backing. And so this is going to be raised up over the bow, like the center of our bow there, but flat on either side. So I'm not sure how well that's showing up, but so it kind of has this little curve. And again, I did not line up my edges with anything that's already on there. So we've got that staggered look. Okay, and then the last thing that we need to do to this card is add some of our strawberry slush gems, strawberry slush and pretty in pink, but we're going to use the clear ones this time. So I'm just going to grab a couple of these. So we'll do one here, and then we're going to take a little one and kind of pop it in between here. So we've got a little bit of sparkle on there. And there is card number 3. And I took this same idea and I added it to, or I used it to create this fun little layout. So I have this box that I'm using. I'll show you. I've got it right here to document my, I'm not sure how well you guys can see that, but snippets of my year for 2023. So I kind of documented like random photos in there. And I still have a few photos left to scrapbook, but I did that same idea. So I die cut a larger circle, added some of the larger elements from the washi tape on here. But you could also do it on 12 by 12 if you're scrapbooking. You cut a big circle. Just use a paper plate to trace the circle, cut it out, and imagine how many of these leftover pieces you could use to fill that. That is something that I definitely want to do because I think it would look fabulous. But that is another way that you can use it. And I wanted to share earlier this week, I shared this card over on my blog. So this is another way. So this is similar to card number one, where we're die cutting the washi tape, except I used the party alphabet dies and die cut the word hello or the letters to create hello and added those on there. I noticed that this is coming up. It needs another dimensional under there, but that's another way that you can use it. And then here is another where I used some of the leftover leaves and just created a frame around there. I used the stamp to stamp the top here, and then an embossing folder here to create this fun little pocket card. So lots and lots of ideas on using this fabulous washi tape, which is back in stock now. For how long, who knows, but it is back in stock. And just a reminder that today, July 25th, 2025, there is still free shipping on qualifying orders. So I will have a full supply list of in the description below, as well as a link to today's blog post for all the measurements if you want to recreate any of these cards. And thank you so much for joining me. Have a fabulous weekend, and I will see you next week. Take care.